time around when it comes to online gambling taxes? Are you an online gambler? And of course, bear in mind that it takes on very different roles and functions, especially when it comes to sports betting or perhaps other forms of making use of betting profiles to generate some kind of income. Well, South Africa is said to be losing out on billions in online gambling taxes, and there might be a move to actually make sure that we clamp down on this, though there is a sense of a refusal to legalize online gambling. Jashwin Baijoo, who's the head of crypto asset compliance at Tax Consulting SA, joins us now for more. Jashwin, always good to have you with us on the show. Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
Fantastic. I guess first things first, Jashwin, help us understand the environment of online gambling in South Africa. Is it legal? Is it illegal? How popular is it? And what updates have we seen in terms of participation in the country?
So when we consider online gambling, we do need to draw a contrast on two fronts, actually. One is to your standard gambling, as in the casino, a Monte Casino or Grand West Casino down in the Cape. And then we need to also look at online exchanges and online currencies such as cryptocurrency. Now, just to very quickly canvass the popularity of online gambling in South Africa, it's exceptionally popular. And where the proposal of, imposing legislation and imposing taxation on this online gambling, it's not from a perspective of the participants, but rather from the platforms. Because quite simply, if legalization takes place in South Africa and South African entities are allowed to partake and provide this service, those entities are then subject to corporate income tax on business profits, which expands the tax base. Bearing in mind that currently we've got a shrinking tax base with a high immigration rate, and most of our taxes come from income tax. Now, as much as there was an increase in tax in the last year due to performance in the mining sector, that windfall is not guaranteed to continue. And we certainly do need additional tax revenue. Based on the tax ceiling, we can't increase current tax rates, so an alternative avenue must be found, which at this stage does seem to be online gambling.
So if it's that simple, why are we seeing a level of resistance then from some of the lawmakers?
So the level of resistance that we see is not from a place of being averse to regulating the sphere in its entirety, but it's more from a place of the burden it will place on regulators. And we've seen a very similar pattern with cryptocurrency in the years preceding 2019, where the uncertainty of understanding precisely how it operates and how the on-platform exchanges work in terms of realization or exchange of assets led to regulations being postponed year after year until some semblance of a grasp was gained over it. Now, it goes a little bit further in this instance because specific licensing requirements are also needed, meaning that there will be a requirement for expansion in governmental infrastructure.
And help us understand that. Does that mean that some kind of technology that would be able to monitor the level of gambling activity, how much revenue is generated, which accounts it translates into, in order to make the revenue collection more efficient?
Yeah, so that's entirely correct. Now, if we look at a few more live examples, we are all aware that the South African Revenue Service has increased their use of artificial intelligence to assist in gaining insight into non-compliance on a broader scale for taxpayers, therefore reducing the burden on individual SARS officials. In private practice, we use tools such as Tax Check, which enable us as tax practitioners to go onto our profile, implement the tool to run a check, and it picks up all non-compliance and all activities. On crypto platforms, they use what's known as a CSV, and that CSV report generates a full transactional history from inception of a particular wallet to date. So some sort of software will be needed because of the broad user base. It will be near impossible for an individual or a group of individuals to sit there and detect every item. Furthermore, because of the decentralized nature of online gambling, and not dissimilar to cryptocurrency actually, but because of that decentralized nature, it will be a case of having to track and trace each and every transaction to fully gauge business profits, unless, of course, the taxpayers in question are fully transparent in all of their tax affairs. So that administrative burden is what can be quite heavy.
Yeah, and I'm a bit worried here because, as you say, of course, this will take a heavy investment, lots of skills that we need to look to develop, the necessary infrastructure. But if we don't get this done now, it's going to cost us in the long term anyway, because we can't really rely on taxpayers to be fully open and disclose their earnings, even from these digital platforms, if there's no clear incentive to. So I guess as a private sector participant, when you speak to government and regulators, is there an urgent drive to see that they need to catch up? Otherwise, we'll continue to fall even further behind as the world continues to digitize and platforms of these nature become more popular.
Yeah, so that's entirely correct, because, I mean, when we engage on the parliamentary submissions or white paper discussions with SARS, it's very much a case of they're pushing this compliance agenda, and yes, they're making voluntary compliance easy and efficient for taxpayers who want to be compliant. At the same time, they're making non-compliance exceptionally hard and costly. Now, that being said, it needs to be borne in mind that there is also the gap in financial literacy or financial education in South Africa as a whole. And when you come from a place of understanding where that disparity lies between your actual financial sector and your financial professionals and your medium to low income earners that do enjoy the online gambling and even the physical gambling, the disparity is ridiculous, truth of the matter. And the reason I say that is because if you think about online sports betting, right? So let's look at Hollywood Bets and Betway. That is based on a fixed outcome with a fixed win rate. Now, when you look at gambling on a slot machine at a casino, that is purely based on luck, which means unless you're a professional gambler and that forms part of your monthly income and is actually supporting your standard of living, if it's based purely on luck and it's more incidental than anything else, that is more of an asset. Now, being an asset with no base cost, that means there's no capital gains tax on it, which means the luck element results in a nil taxation effect for the individual receiving any winnings. On the converse side, for any business profits made to a physical gambling institution, they are taxed as per normal business profit. Now, what the proposal is that this extends to online gambling to simply increase the South African domestic tax base.
You're very right. You know, it almost seems as though there's if we don't address this adequately, there will be some concerns. But let's talk to the taxpayer now, who might be participating in online sports betting and maybe made a couple of rands here and there, or a couple of thousands of rands here and there. What do they need to be cognizant of, especially for those who have yet to disclose this alternative form of income?
Look, so for the taxpayer that occasionally indulges in a little bit of online gambling, and it's not something consistent, it's not something they do on a regular basis, and it's not something that can be construed as part of their income generating activities on a monthly basis, they don't really need to worry. It's your taxpayer that does it more regularly, and the same differentiation is usually done on a scale of online trading and transactionals for cryptocurrency, where there's a differentiation between trading stock. Your frequency of trade dictates your trading stock, and it's part of your day-to-day life, so to speak. And then there's the guy that does it occasionally, and it's more capital in nature. Obviously, a lower income rate, and the tax on that is at your capital gains taxes. So it's much the same in this instance, where if it's a professional gambler, so to speak, in inverted commas, then it will be a case of their winnings on their online platforms, as well as as it currently is in physical casinos where gambling is actually taking place, will then form part of their taxable income for the period.
Aha, got you. Okay, so it's important that we need to be mindful of this and understanding the tax implications. Shoo, it sounds like it's getting even more interesting, even more complex, and I'm assuming we're even finding creative ways of tax avoidance, right, which we continue to... evasion is not what we want, but legal ways that within the systems of avoidance are still advisable. Would that be correct?
Look, so the thing is, there are no legal ways of tax avoidance nor tax evasion. The best that a taxpayer can hope for is to upfront engage tax experts in their tax planning, which will result in optimization of their taxes.
Got you. Okay, that's exactly what we need to hear, because exactly that's why you professionals exist, right? For us to actually engage you and also pick your brains on some of the most probable solutions that are best to meet our needs. Jashwin, thank you so much for your time this evening, sir.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Anytime. That's Jashwin Baijoo, who's the head of crypto asset compliance at Tax Consulting South Africa.